Hello, kiddies. It's your old Uncle Jimmy again, here to read you a story. Yes. Now, this story takes place in England. Do you know where England is? Well, it's someplace else. I don't know where you are. You don't know where I am. And that's probably for the best. England makes a lot of nice stuff. They make the gin in my martini. They do a darn good job of it, too. I bet your mommy and daddy have a martini sometimes, don't they? Sure they do. And when they do, I bet mommy giggles a lot. Daddy rubs her shoulders and kind of bumps into the front of her for no reason at all. Yeah, I'll bet that happens. I'll bet mommy and daddy had martinis just before you were born. I put good money on that. Well, now I'm going to read you my story. I'm just going to rearrange myself here. What's the best way I'm going to do this? I'm going to put it up here. I don't know why I put it in the way I did, but I did. So, this story is called Dennison at the Kenilworth Club. Did I tell you that already? Hey, Cedric, how many of these have I had? Okay, I'm okay then. All right, so this story is called Dennison at the Kenilworth Club. Dennison sported a ginger mustache and a pair of monstrous ginger eyebrows that bore a startling resemblance to caterpillars at rest on the top of his glasses. When he was feeling particularly playful, he was known to fill the gap with a genuine article, which naturally wandered about his forehead. He said it gave his face character. I rather thought his face looked to be rearranging itself into a more favorable alignment. He stepped into the lobby of the Kenilworth Club and paused thoughtfully. Putting a finger to his lips, he said, "Hush." I hushed. But for the life of me, I couldn't discern what fascinated him so. There was the usual rustle of the Times being fluttered by disgruntled stockbrokers in the lounge, laughter from the bar where some rapier wit was unsheathed, and the soft buzz of Bert Woodhouse snoring in a wing chair by the door. But none of it meant a deuced thing to me, and I couldn't fathom what had captured his attention. He leaned forward and whispered,
"Sounds like a symphony, doesn't it?"
Oh, it was true. Dennison had stopped taking his medications. He continued in a lofty voice as he surveyed the lobby.
"This place is redolent with decay."
I rather expect that's old Carnaby over there, I said, indicating the Chippendale chair by the front desk. Passed away after lunch. Rasmussen is called the family, but they're in Sicily. If they're not back by the end of the week, he'll call for an ambulance and charge it to Carnaby's account.
That's sensible. Old members are always monopolizing the best chairs. Can't let it continue indefinitely. Expect that's the most comfortable one in the place. What?
He had, of course, deduced correctly. Old Carnaby was sitting in the finest leather chair in the establishment, one that had been part of the Kenilworth Club for over 100 years and which had a curious history with his family. It was the very chair his father shuffled off his mortal coil some 25 years before, just as his father did before him. I rather expect when Carnaby the Younger feels the need to pop off, he'll make his way to the club like it's the elephant burial ground and expire there like his predecessors. Sticklers for tradition, the Carnabys. "Is this the library over here?" asked Dennison, not waiting for my reply, but setting sail for it like the Queen Mary fresh out of Southampton. The similarity was striking, and only enhanced when two page boys bumped into him like tugs to steer him through the doorway. "We have it all here," I explained when I caught up. "Library, dining room, lodging upstairs, card room, even an exercise room." He stopped and turned.
"An exercise room?"
He said exercise as if it was a synonym for raw sewage. He was being facetious, of course. Dennison had been in London in 1946 as a member of the British Olympic fencing team and would have won a medal except he was 2 years early. That was all the time he needed to make such a name for himself as an amateur detective. He was named to the Christmas honors list. Guardian of the King's Chamber Pot. "Cedric, want to make me another one of these? Very dry." "Just wave the lid of the vermouth over the top." "Second thought, don't take the lid off the bottle. Just wave the whole thing over it." Now, where were we? Oh, yes. The library is arguably the most impressive room in the club, with raised oak panels finished in a lustrous walnut, and a balcony with a wispy wrought iron railing curling around on all four sides. Shame, really. No one thought to include a stairway. It is a tradition within the club that when a member dies, he wills to it his favorite books from his personal library. In this way, the place has inherited a number of rare first editions, but, more significantly, has the finest collection of pornography and erotic literature in the Western world.
"Care for a cigar?"
asked Dennison, reaching into his pocket. "They don't allow smoking in here," I began, but he just waved me off and sat at a table with a stack of first editions. He pulled a handful of tobacco leaves from his pocket and, picking up an original copy of Huckleberry Finn, thumbed through until he found the page he wanted and tore it out.
"You can't beat Twain for a good cigar,"
he said, shredding the leaves in the middle of the sheet and rolling it expertly.
"Some say Churchill, others say Dickens, but for me, it's always Twain."
He lit it expertly, his keen eyes never leaving my face so he could see my reaction. Regrettably, he saw my reaction, but missed his cigar and set fire to his thumb instead. Acting like it was what he'd intended all along, he held the smoldering digit to the end of his cigar and puffed away until it was well along. Then, giving his hand a shake, he ordered a whiskey on the rocks and soaked the blackened digit in it.
"I'll wager you've never sweetened your drink with charred thumb," he chuckled.
"You'd win that bet," I replied.
"You should try it. Ripens the whiskey. Gives it a heady aftertaste of aged hickory. Learned the trick in Scotland when I was working for old Angus McAllister of the McAllister Wee Drop of Scotland Distillery. Didn't believe it would work myself and told him so. He set fire to his thumb and dipped it in a vat of 100-proof scotch just to prove it. Whole thing went up in flames, of course, and McAllister along with it. But sure enough, what was left had a delightful bouquet and a woody aftertaste."
That's the thing about Dennison. He's been halfway round the world and back again, working as everything from camel herder in the Kalahari to camel herder at the Ritz-Carlton. A man like that doesn't see things the same as you and I.
"You mentioned a murder,"
he began. I was startled. No, I didn't. He looked at me shrewdly, as if I'd missed something obvious, like a knife in my chest.
"Then perhaps you should, because unless I miss my guess, that man in the corner is a victim of foul play."
Dennison spoke with such authority, if he hadn't pointed him out, I might have expired on the strength of his conviction alone.
"Don't touch him,"
he said, pushing me away. With the smooth hand of the master detective, he rifled the pockets and removed the wristwatch from Hennessy's arm and replaced it with his own.
evidence, he murmured.
Rasmussen was called, and after a strict auditing of the books, it was determined Hennessy's account was paid in full until the end of the month. No hurry to call the police, Rasmussen declared. He's fully entitled to use the facilities until then.
Do you notice anything unusual about the body?
Dennison asked quietly. Besides your wristwatch, I replied.
He smiled like an oriental potentate and said in an oily voice, Don't be cute, Mr. Snoopy Drawers. People are always getting murdered when I'm around, and I don't make a red cent from it. Try looking further down.
Try as I might, I couldn't make out what he found so significant.
The shoes, man! Look at the shoes!
I've seen this before, nodded Dennison, blowing a smoke ring. Well, of course he had. Dennison was infamous for the women's pumps he favored. He put on a fetching pair for the visit that very day. He looked at me shrewdly. What do you make of the strap he's been strangled with? I got down on the floor for a closer examination. I could still smell the woody scent of Pine Sol Cleaner, Hennessy's cologne of choice. He splashed himself liberally with it each morning, the only disadvantage being how it foamed in the rain. I pulled away his collar for a better look. Most unusual, I said. Looks like the strap's made of pearls.
That's because it's not a strap at all, but a string of pearls.
I stood up and looked askance. Strangled by a string of pearls. What a horrible way to die.
To you and I, perhaps, but not for some. I recollect Lady Famersham wanted to end it all and tried to hang herself with a pearl necklace. Turned out the butler had purloined the original and replaced it with a cheap imitation string that broke when she kicked the chair away. Considered hanging herself with a diamond necklace, but gave it up when it didn't match her ensemble.
You're not suggesting he tried to kill himself, are you? Dennison snorted.
Nothing as prosaic as that. Notice how the shoes coordinate beautifully with the necklace. Clearly, he borrowed the pearls from his wife without her consent. I know the family well. Margot Hennessy has a notoriously skinny neck. For years, she wore a charm bracelet round it comfortably. Mr. Hennessy, on the other hand, has a neck so thick he needed 2 neckties to circumnavigate it. I'm afraid he didn't account for the differential when he put the necklace on this morning. No, my friend, what we have here is death by fashion.
It's characteristic of Dennison. He should sense the right thing to do in such a situation. Taking a coffee table book on the joys of spanking, he opened it to a picture of a brunette with a large paddle and placed it reverentially over Hennessy's face. I nodded approvingly. He would have wanted it that way. So that's the story of Dennison at the Kenilworth Club. I hope you liked it. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't really care if you liked it or not. Sounds like my wife is here. Cedric, you want to make up 2 of these? That's a boy. Well, unless I get a job, see you next time when I read you another story.